right, good evening, everybody. City of Clear Lake Shores City Council regular meeting, September 6, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. All council members are present. And we have a full quorum. Item 2, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the Texas flag. Item number 3 is public hearing for the proposed budget for fiscal year 2023. I don't know if anybody just taking take the time at 6:31 that we have it open for public hearing. Anybody would like to speak on behalf about the proposed budget for fiscal year 23? Everybody's jumping up. Having none, we'll close the public hearing at 6:31 p.m. Next is item number 4, presentation from Mr. Cox and Ron Cox Consulting to present the report on the strategic plan for the City of Clear Lake Shores. And I want to thank you for coming out this evening and bringing that to us.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity, as always, to work with the council. That's kind of halfway up. It may go ahead and load here. There it went. To work with the council and the Economic Development Corporation. Once again, I did this. Worked with you all 2 years ago, I think, and went through the planning process and came and made the report. And so this year, you all asked me to come back again. And I'm glad to be able to do that. Let's see if this is going to work. Yeah. Probably would help if I turned this on. There we go. So I appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate the council's participation in this, as well as the members of the Economic Development Committee, some of whom I've spoken with and talked to today. And so thank you all for your participation. It was a great afternoon, a good working session, and from that we prepared a report for which you should have in your packet. We also prepared a draft implementation plan after the session together. Brent and I worked together to prepare that draft implementation plan. That's the working document, the action plan, the action steps. We won't go through that tonight by any means, but I did want to refer to that, and that's sort of the paper that you will look at to see what kind of progress you've been made. Brent would report off of that in terms of progress from your strategic plan. So I also want to thank the staff. This is the first time that the staff participated to the extent that they did. We didn't have we just had Brent the first time, but this time we had the chief and our public works, our building official and other folks there as well. So we were glad to have had everybody there. On June, in June we had our session, and the first thing we did was we reviewed our governance model and updated that. We reviewed the strategic plan from 2019 and updated that. And then we said, okay, what's left? What is there that we need to do? And out of that then came the full report and the strategic plan. For tonight, I just want to review those outcomes fairly quickly for you. I've been put on a short noose, at least by one council member already. And I was reminded very quickly that the Astros game starts at 7, so I'll do my best. So I want to review those outcomes. I want to review that implementation plan. Probably won't do any detailed review of that, as I said, but just kind of give you an overview of what it looks like and how it works. and then if you have it on your agenda, if it's ready for you to approve the plan, then certainly you'll be able to. In 2019, we developed a governance model, and the first thing we did was we asked all of the participants why they served in 2019. I'm not going to go through these lists over again, but we reviewed this list from 2019, and then asked the new members, the new participants, why you all are serving in this process. And what I wanted to do was just kind of get a feel from everybody, for everyone to get a feel for why do you serve, why are you here. And you can see the commonality between 2019 and 2022 of what you all, of why you're here and what you all want to accomplish and what you all want to do. We also talked in terms of governance, and in terms of governance, we talked about building that corral, how we go about doing our business, how we govern, what is our process, and what do we want to be known by. And we talked about leadership, communication, expectations, and then the proactive visioning and planning that ultimately we went through. And so we ask all of you to take a look at what was developed in 2019 as far as leadership, and then take a look at what you believe to be the case in 2022. Again, a lot of commonality, but some differences. To be able to manage community expectation, to listen to all views without being partisan or by being bipartisan, to make decisions based on available information and understanding the majority opinion. That's what came from your session or our session here in 22. Very similar, again, to the 19 list. And there was no one, I will say that there was no one in 22 that said we need to throw the 19 list out, that it was a bad list. It's just a little bit different, and maybe some emphasis on a few different things. How will you lead was the topic for this discussion. We also talked about how will you communicate in 2019 by honoring alternative viewpoints, by sharing and by working through the city administrator. Brent had just come to town about that time, and by working through him in this process of governance to communicate with citizens, and out of that came several initiatives in terms of communication, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But then, and now in 2022, some additional initiatives. Prepare a Did You Know page, just information, developing more information, being able to communicate more and more to the community as a whole in every way possible, to tell the story of what the city does, and to touch the citizens in every way that we can. Be sure and focus on the facts as we move through this process. How will we lead? How will we communicate? And what are our expectations? We talked about our roles as well, council versus staff, and we talked a little bit about this. It's a little different in a general law city than it is in a home rule city, but still the principle is the same. Council and the EDC set that policy and set that path, but primarily council sets that path, and the staff then puts the rubber to the road, gets the work done in the best fashion possible, with the city administrator being in the middle and being the fulcrum in this process to keep things moving and balance that between the policy needs and the administrative needs of the community. So that being the role, then what are your expectations in that regard? You first said we want to attend and participate. We want to be prepared. We want to be open-minded. That was in 19, and the only thing you added to the list in 22 was to be available, and that would apply to each other, expectations of each other, to be available to each other, to attend these meetings, to be faithful to that process, as well as the EDC be faithful to that process. And then what do you expect of staff? What do you expect of each other, and what do you expect with staff? And that is to engage with the committees, to be fiscally responsible, to conduct for the city manager to conduct formal evaluations. That was in 19, and I know Brent does that now. He's instituted that process. To provide training to the employees in the identified areas of need. For 22, for the staff not to be afraid to ask questions and to utilize the strategic plan as a tool. And that certainly is a tool for not only staff but for the council to use as well. So we moved from leadership, communication, expectations to planning and vision. And we reviewed the approved vision statement, and that is that we're a unique, forward-thinking community that preserves our quality of life and small-town atmosphere. And from this point on, if we agree with the vision, then our actions should be consistent with that vision. And if they're not consistent with the vision, then one of two things has to happen. We either need to change our actions or we change our vision, one way or the other. But this vision has been in place for a number of years, and the group that was present, Council and EDC, saw no reason to change that. So we did explore then what are the key elements of that vision. If the vision is to be forward-thinking, to preserve our quality of life and small-town atmosphere, then what are those vision elements? And we looked at those in 19, and then we added some in 22. A sustainable community, a balanced place to live, work, and play, pedestrian-friendly, mobile, boating community with an eclectic feel, welcoming to visitors, sociable, neighborly, those sorts of things, small-town atmosphere. So in 22, it's very similar, a place to live, sleep, and relax, about people of all ages wanting to live here by their choice. Not one group, not one group of folks in terms of their age, but all ages to live here by choice. To be a close-knit community with all the amenities. Again, to be eclectic, not to be cookie-cutter. To have good schools, to be a quiet city with access to big retail and medical facilities, which you certainly are. A community where you know your neighbors, a feeling of community everywhere you go, and making certain we keep what we have. What we have now is important, and that's what we want to keep. And so those are the key elements. That's when we develop our strategies. Again, those strategies should be consistent with those key vision elements. And how then, if the vision has been stated, then the question is, how do we do that? We embrace our unique spirit in our community. We preserve and affirm our distinct identity, and we foster responsible growth and economic development. We also took a look not only at the city's mission, but the EDC mission statement to promote, assist, and enhance the economic development activities and quality of life opportunities within the city that promotes economic development as authorized by the Development Corporation Act. That is move the city forward economically so that it can be sustainable, so that you can sustain it in the way that you want it to be for the future. So those two things combined, then we began to look at strategies. But before that, in 19, right after Mayor Otten was elected, he brought these foundational comments to the forefront, and we reviewed those as well. To be accountable, to be fiscally responsible, to be trustworthy, to have discipline, to be confident, to take responsibility, to be a part of a team, and to have transparency and communication. Those foundations then should be form the values, if you will, by which you operate on a daily basis, and particularly for the staff to do as well. So those foundations then should also be consistent with that vision and mission, and we find that they are. So I wanted to go through these outcomes of the governance process. Now let's go through the planning, the product from the strategic planning session. So what you see on this, and I hope it's large enough for you to read, those items in red are things that we worked on to add to the plan or to clarify the wording of the plan. For example, last time under economic development, there was develop a plan to annex the ETJ areas. So we reworded that a little bit because that plan's pretty well been developed, but to go ahead and put it as an implementation plan to annex and develop the ETJ area. Developing that incentive plan was something in 19, and then we continue to coordinate with the neighboring cities to promote the proper land use. Where we meet with League City and Kemah and our neighbors in that regard, how can we work together to better promote a common land use that's compatible for both communities instead of just one. Update the city's comprehensive plan to promote quality land issues inside and outside the city limits. That's not any more important than the others. It just ended up being bold somehow. I'm not sure how that happened. Establish a market-driven business development plan. You'll see the new items: assist current businesses that wish to expand, utilize consultants for key economic development projects, establish a long-term solution to town center parking, consider sale of the Plaza 1006 assets. Those are considerations for you to debate and deliberate. You may or may not do all of those, but that's the plan in place for you to take a look at. Develop a strategy for long-term alternative revenues in the event of a catastrophic loss of sales tax. That was on the 19 plan and remains on the 22 plan as well. So this was for the strategic focus area for economic development. You also took a look at the strategic focus areas for communication and developed, you can see a whole list of new action items under the strategy to establish a plan for maintaining and community messaging and engagement. Ensure messaging includes residents who live both on and off the island proper. Ensure consistency of messaging from city and EDC. Prepare and distribute the Did You Know information. Utilize town hall meeting forums. Provide weekly updates to council, committees, and citizens where appropriate. Establish initiatives for improving city-community relations. And establish an EDC web and Facebook page to improve the presentation and presence of both the city council, the city, and the EDC. And then to work actively through the membership of Bay Area Houston Conventions and Visitors Bureau. That particular organization, I understand, has sort of been revived and rejuvenated. I think you all are now members of that association, and so it provides new opportunity that you didn't have in 19 when we were last together. The initiatives and strategies for communications. For organizational excellence, we renamed this. I can't remember what it was, Brent. Something about employee improvements or something like that. So we kind of changed the name of it to organizational excellence, but the basic 2019 plan: properly utilize staff, identify key special needs and identify consultants to assist in meeting those needs, ensure properly trained personnel at all levels, establish a staffing plan, and then under that staffing plan, perhaps utilize an intern, utilize part-time people where they're appropriate, kind of build on the fact that you have a small staff and fill in the gaps with part-time people or consultants where the case may be. And then utilize the committees effectively was a 2019 initiative. Establish the annexation committee, continue to reward citizens for volunteering committees, including a Volunteer of the Year award. Develop opportunities for local cultural events. Identify uses for the hot tax and the use of the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Review and plan for expansion and collection of fees. review and improve ordinances and regulations. Short-term rentals, drainage, parking, and permitting were 4 that were listed during the course of the conversations that we had that day. Organizational excellence. And then infrastructure, a key focus area of infrastructure. Maintain the city's voice on floodplain issues, maintain the city's voice on the 146 project, were both from 2019. Construct a new Clear Lake Road bridge and pedestrian access, reworded, I think, and maybe strengthened in terms of from 2019 to 2022, and seek TxDOT federal bridge program replacement funding for that bridge expansion. Develop the long-term plan for replacement of City Hall, establish of additional parking, develop a plan for connecting the Watergate development. That was on the 2019. 2022, open Aspen Road to golf carts and walking access, improve the Deep Hole Park area. Is there really a deep hole out there? It is a deep hole, okay. I've always wondered if there was really a deep hole there. Establish a Grove Park bench area and install fiber optic at City Hall. So those were new initiatives that you all came up with during the course of our afternoon together. We also talked about threats, but I want to talk a little bit more about well, I'll go to that when I go to the implementation plan. We talked about threats. What would keep us from doing what we're going to do? And you identified these in 19, and we identified another list in 22. There's always things that can get in our way. So we didn't have an action plan on how to overcome these, but if we identify those, if we know what they are in advance, we won't be surprised, and we'll be able to anticipate those as we move forward. So with regard to the implementation plan, it is a separate document, and I don't have it up here. But what it does, it takes those initiatives, those strategies, and adds action to those. And so you'll see in that document, you'll see the strategy, you'll see the action items, you'll see action steps, you'll see a timeline, and you'll see who is assigned to. And in this case, it's always assigned to Brent. But he's going to delegate as best that he possibly can. But what that does, it sets out these events in a timeline that will be rational, hopefully, and that will give you plenty of time to deliberate those items before a decision is made. They're not all due the first quarter of the next fiscal year. They move through this fiscal year and on in 2 years in advance. So these strategic plans are to be implemented very deliberately. A lot of these things will be there'll be a lot of comments and discussions at your level. How do you want to handle this? What are some of the policy implications? What are the community implications to doing these kinds of things? Just as you deliberate ordinances, you deliberate those strategies similarly. Those that you can delegate to the EDC are those economic development strategies. You would ask them to bring those recommendations back to you if there are policy decisions to be made. So it takes time to go through these things, and sometimes we say, well, that's work that's in addition to everything that we do on a regular basis. And to some degree, it is. But to a large degree, it should become the work, particularly for the staff to focus on those strategies and those initiatives that you all and the EDC had defined together. So this process ultimately is not concluded. It moves forward. It's a step-by-step process that will require update from time to time, just like from 19 to 22, and it may be 24 before you see me back again. But whenever it's time to say, okay, we need to update this, then that's when you should get back together and re-strategize. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. I think I've gotten out before 7. I probably took more than my 5 or 10 minutes that Brent wanted me to, but be glad to answer any questions you have. And I've enjoyed working with all of you on council, the staff, and the members of the EDC as well.
No questions. Just again, extend extreme thanks for dedicating your time and effort to all this, and somewhat retired, but I know you got a lot of experience with City of Friendswood and bringing all that wealth of experience to us here in Clear Lake Shores. And also a big thanks to council and EDC, and then also just a big mention to the citizens of Clear Lake Shores. If you make sure you reach out to council, myself, or EDC, or staff of anything that you see up there that needs to make changes into. That's how we incorporate it into our next strategic plan. We're just trying to do the best we can, what we think's best for Clear Lake Shores, and represent the citizens, of which we are all citizens also. All right, next is reports from council. Item number 5, Councilman Steve Wirtus.
Not working, but I have nothing to report.
Just you can hold it down. There.
Oh.
It's on. All right. Thank you,
Nothing to
Mr.
report.
Wirtus. Councilman Rick Fisher.
There we go. We had a meeting for Parks and Pool back on August 15th. Actually, Chris isn't here to do the full report. I can do it now, or if you want to wait till staff reports, or
Whatever's
from the
easier
committee.
for you.
I'll just give it during the committee report.
Okay.
Give you all the update on that.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher, and Councilwoman Monica Leday.
I don't have anything to report at this time.
All right, thanks, Ms. Leday. Councilman Alex Scanlon.
We've got one thing. I've been working on compiling a list of street signs that are damaged or in the wrong spot or don't make any sense. I'm working with getting those to Brent. If anyone knows of any, or they see something that they think should be brought to our attention, let me know and I'll get it on the list. Hopefully we can get those small items taken care of here pretty soon.
All right, thank you, Mr. Scanlon, and Councilman Randy Cronister.
So most of you can see Blue Point's going along pretty well. I'm sure you like it over there, Monica. It's nice and smooth today. They're almost done. They did a lot today. So it looks good over there. I think we're gonna do some more surveying and do some drainage stuff over on Narcissus before we talk about doing stuff over there. But it looks good over there on Blue Point.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cronister. And Mayor reports, just one big main one here is to extend our major condolences for one of our best volunteers that we lost on August 26th, being Carrie Kelly. So just keep her in your thoughts and prayers, and she's obviously making up there a lot better place too. So, but she did a lot for the city and had a courageous fight against cancer. So just remember about her. Thank you. Next is staff reports. Police Department Chief Keith.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The Clear Lake Shores Police Department in the month of August conducted 136 traffic contacts, made 1 arrest for DWI, 5 narcotics offenses, 4 disturbances, 1 assault, 5 thefts, 16 arrests total including warrants, 18 assist other agencies. We conducted 72 residential checks and 405 business checks. I don't have an update from WatchGuard. I've sent a couple emails for the an update on when the delivery will be made and installation. I haven't gotten a response yet. The latest email I sent was at about 4 o'clock, so I haven't gotten a reply on that one. And the ticket writers are still in a work in progress. It's not dead yet, so still trying to get that up and running. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Chief Keel. Next is City Administrator Brent Spear.
Good evening, Council, members of the public. With Kevin Harrell's departure, he's been working part-time for us in the evenings on nights that he gets home. So we've had some continuity there, but I'm happy to report that after a search, we have an offer of employment that's been made and accepted by Jason Ellison for the building official position. Jason's currently at City of Brazoria in Brazoria County, has many years of experience and numerous certifications through the ICC or the International Code Council, and he's also a certified floodplain manager, so that's helpful. And he's had experience in a coastal community, because he worked at Palacios for a while. So his first day will be September 26th, and we look forward to having him join the team. Concurrently, also, agreement was signed. It doesn't cost us anything unless we flip the switch, but this is with Safe Built, which is an independent third-party contractor for inspections. The term of that professional agreement is a year, and like I said, it's only activated paid upon our request if we give them a project. They're currently completing their onboarding materials, and then they'll meet with staff, and if we need to utilize them for like a large project, that would be my suggestion, to utilize third party outside for either large commercial if we ever have that ground up, or multi-residential. Court's going to be virtual again. There's no update on the Texas Parks and Wildlife grant for Shell Bottom Park, but we are only 4 months into that 6-month expected permit approval process. Daniel Drawer, I think we'll talk about that later in the agenda, and I believe Johnny Boltinghouse is here to talk about EDC, but the one thing that I had on my notes was that True North Marine is a 380 agreement with the EDC, and they've qualified for a tax rebate from the EDC based on their taxable sales. So that's quite an accomplishment. They came up a little short last year, and I believe that Mr. McAndrew, the owner, will probably be speaking to EDC at their next meeting. I've requested some documentation for that, and we'll move forward with that rebate program. So, and that twilight's after 10 years, and right now I think we're in the year 4, but it was performance year 3 that they qualified. So. With Plaza 1006 and drainage up in Captain's Corner, I do have a design with Cobb Finley, and I have a quote from a contractor. We're working through some of those details, but I believe we can reduce a little bit of the cost with the material change with the engineer's approval, and should fall under the budget that's being proposed, so it wouldn't require to come back to council or anything for that, but would be below the bid threshold of $50,000. So I'm happy with that outcome if that comes forth. As far as accessing vehicles, everything's been sold, so no more old police cars, and we got rid of a seized truck. And based on the feedback I've gotten from those folks, that they are everyone seems to be happy with their purchase, and they've gone to all over the place. New York, New Jersey, Louisiana, and one stayed pretty close to home. It's probably about 5 or 6 blocks away. So we're happy about that. The dates of interest, September 8th is the Patriot Awards for law enforcement. That's going to be at South Shore, South Shore Convention Center. And so the city will be going there and honoring one of the officers that Chief Keel recommended. September 11th at 7:30 p.m. at Jarbo Pavilion, there will be a Patriot Day U.S. flag retirement ceremony.
We got it changed to 2 o'clock.
Okay, it's been changed to 2 o'clock. So I had bad info.
Everybody come out.
So 2 p.m. We do have the ability to take your flags at City Hall, or if you'd just like to bring them to that event, you can do so, and they'll be retired with honors. And the Galveston County Mayor and Councilmen's Association dinner is hosted by Clear Lake Shores. That's going to be September 14th at Opus Ocean Grill. So looking forward to that. The rest of the items are on the agenda, and if there are any questions, I'll certainly entertain those.
I do have a question. On the sale of all the vehicles, did we cover the costs that we were looking to cover? Did we cover all the costs that we needed to cover with the sale of the vehicles?
No, we did not. It was all told with everything that was sold, including the previous emergency management trailer. It was about $40,000. I think it was $36,000 total. So in the there's $4,000 of that has to go back to a seized account, and the rest of that can be applied to our capital equipment. Because it was it was a relinquished property, with a court seizure, so that will have to go back to that account. Mm-hmm.
Briefly, the Patriot Awards is at the Johnny Arolfo Community Center, not South Shore.
Thanks for that correction.
All right, thank you, Mr. Spear. Next is item number 7, new council business discussion and possible action may be taken on the following items. Item A is continuation of one city council meeting a month, being on the first Tuesday of each month. I placed this on air over the summer months. We considered it back in February, March, and we ran through the summer months with one meeting, just due to the amount what's on the agendas and stuff, and I think it's gone well, but basically just putting this out to council to move forward with that, or also address possibly what we've done in the past is reduce the winter months like November, December, and January and February to one meeting per month. And the reason why this has been moved up in the agenda is to allow council to consider it and vote on it, and if we do go to one per month, then the committee reports will report tonight, of course, because we won't have a meeting the second Tuesday or third Tuesday of the month.
I make a motion to continue one city council meeting per month, being the first Tuesday of the month.
I will second the motion.
All right, we have a first and second to continue one meeting a month. Any discussion?
So, what happens if there is something that comes up we need to talk about? We just call a special meeting, or?
If
I mean,
it,
that's gonna reduce the things that any of us can put on the agenda, not that we've all put a million things on there, but we're not talking to the public as much, we're not communicating as much.
yeah,
So I'm just asking, do we call a special meeting if there's something that comes up, or, you know, before the next meeting, or everything's gonna have to wait till the next meeting?
either or. And just per our ordinances, it requires one meeting a month, but states that we have two meetings a month. So another option is, Christie was mentioning, is that we can also modify the ordinance. The way that I had added this is just as for council to consider. We don't have to do it until wintertime if you want, or not do it at all. It's up to y'all.
Every time we do this, there seems to be something that pops up. I know last summer, really is fresh in my mind with the drainage ordinance. We had to do a couple special meetings, and same thing with the budget. We had to ask for a second meeting to really get our heads around it, and I feel like we're not together enough to be able to be effective if we're only meeting once a month.
Well, the budget meetings were workshops, so it has nothing to do with the regular meeting.
I have to agree with you two also. I think it's reducing it down to one a month just crams too many things in there, and also it doesn't give the public enough opportunity to come out, and sometimes it's hard to catch us just during the work week. We've all got day jobs and everything. I think it works a lot better being able to spread it out, just having 2 meetings a month. I think we can address it on a month-to-month basis. Like if we want to do it for December, for the holidays, maybe reduce it down to one for that. But just going down to one meeting a month, not a big fan.
Any further discussion? Having none, all in favor, aye. Any opposed, nay? 2 for and 3 against. Motion fails. All right. Thanks. All right, so I'd like to proceed, skipping item 8 since it's gonna be reported in the next meeting. And then also skip item 9, Civic Club Activity Report will be given at the next meeting. And item 10, CLS 60th Anniversary will be given at the next meeting. And item 11, Economic Development Corporation will be given at the next meeting. Item 12, Public Comments. At this time, any person with city-related business may speak to City Council. Topic of discussion must be consistent with an item listed on the agenda. In compliance with Texas Open Meetings Act, the City Council may not deliberate. Comments from public should be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes per individual. Having none, we'll go to item 13, Consent Agenda. Anyone from council want to pull an item on consent agenda?
I just have one question on the consent agenda. Unfortunately, I left mine at home. There was a check in there in the check register for the blinds. Was that for the blinds here in the clubhouse, or is that for something else?
Yes, they were here in the clubhouse, and it was reimbursed by the Civic Club.
Okay, it's the Civic, okay.
Civic Club actually
that's what I
paid
was
for 'em.
confused about, because I thought I had heard the Civic Club had taken care of it.
Yes,
so.
they did take care of it. It
Okay.
was just that I initiated the quote with the vendor, and when he issued the invoice, it was attached to our name. But he didn't.
The bill came to
Yeah,
the city, so
yeah,
we
so
were
we just-
obligated to pay the bill.
we just
instead
paid
of
it.
Alright, like I
reading
said,
the invoice.
they had said the Civic Club had taken care of it, and I saw
Sure.
it on there, so I was just curious. Alright, thanks,
Yeah,
man,
that was
appreciate
it.
Alright, any objections to the consent agenda? Having none, the consent agenda is written, or accepted as written, sorry. Items A through E. Item 14 is continuation of new business. Discussion of possible action may be taken on the following items. Item A is ordinance 2022-05, an ordinance of the City of Clear Lake Shores, Texas, approving the 2023 ad valorem tax rate and levy it at 0.00 per $100 of assessed valuation of all taxable property within the corporate limits of city and providing a repealer. So this is something we have to go through each year to if there are any modification, then declare our ad valorem tax for the city property.
I'll make a motion to accept ordinance, ordinance 2022-05.
I second it.
Motion by Mr. Fisher, second by Ms. Leday. Any discussion? Having none, all in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Having none, the motion passes unanimously. Item B is adopt the strategic plan 2022 through 2025. Mr. Spear.
I think Mr. Cox took the slides with him. Otherwise, I was going to run through those all again in case you forgot. Yeah, this is just a formal adoption of that strategic plan, and that provides guidance to staff and our elected officials, and lets the residents know what we're focusing on, as he explained. So I would recommend adoption of the strategic plan as presented.
I make a motion to adopt the strategic plan.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Leday, second by Mr. Cronister. Any discussion? Having none, all in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Alright, item D. Nope, C, sorry. Ordinance 2022-06, an ordinance of the City of Clear Lake Shores, Texas, renaming a portion of Hanson Road from Daniel Jor Avenue north to its intersection with FM Road 2094 to Daniel Jor Avenue, and containing other provisions related to the subject. What this is, if you look at Google Maps right now, they've actually named the whole road Hanson, both Hanson Road coming east to west and then also north to south. The original plan was to name the portion from Hanson Road intersection to 518, but if you look how that intersection happens there, it was a little bit different than what they were originally planning. It's actually a T. So it makes more sense to have Daniel Drawer Avenue continue from 518 to 2094. So this, ordinance change allows for that, and matches more up with the confines of the street alignments.
I make a motion we pass ordinance 2022-06 to change the name of that road.
A second.
Motion by Mr. Cronster, second by Ms. Leday. Any discussion?
Do we know the history of why it was named Hanson Road? I looked and saw that the landowner
Mr. Hanson.
was there that donated it before, so we're changing one street name to the new guy because he's the new guy. I mean, is that what we're doing because Mr. Drawer wanted it through, or?
Mr. Drawer was the owner of the property. He bought it originally from the Hansons, and the Hansons were the farmers that had all of that section of land. The Hanson homestead is still there on Hanson Road, so it's kind of behind the strip mall, like behind the
White
Walgreens.
House
There's a
behind
small little
Specs.
house there. That's the Hanson house. And Mr. Drawer, who the name road's named for, had quite a story on how he came to meet Mr. Hanson and some of the things they shared, and then eventually he struck a deal and he bought the rest of that land from him. So I think it's important to retain Hanson because that's important to history, but then Mr. Drawer is important, and I think that Mr. Drawer's influence on purchasing that and converting it basically from pasture to buildable land with additional opportunities, we'll see the good of that in future years.
So it's only a portion?
It's just it's the portion from the intersection. It's kind of like a loose Y intersection right now, and it's from that intersection north to 2094. And if you look on a map, Hanson does a swing. This will not necessarily straight, but it's more in alignment with it, so it makes sense. We've identified the property owners, and we've got a list and a letter constructed and ready to make that happen. So.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't want to erase someone else's, what they thought was their legacy that they were leaving by changing the name, if it was the Elks Lodge or something, but if the homestead was on the other portion, that's fine.
Any further discussion? Having none, all in favor, aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item D is permanent stop signs installed at intersection of Drawer Road and Hanson Road. Mr. Spear.
Talking about the Drawers and the Hansons. This is actually Drawer Lane, and Drawer Lane runs from the parking lot at Target south, and it's that little access road that dumps you out next to Aldi's. And so during construction of 146, when they had 518 shut down for construction, and we've also seen increased activity with construction along the other portion of Hanson when they had that closed. Primarily for 146, we had this came to council for temporary stop signs, just to make that a safer intersection and allow people to go one way or the other. It took a little while for everyone to get in line with that. However, now I believe they're in line with that, and I would request that they become permanent stop signs just in the interest of safety. It really improves that intersection greatly, and I would recommend approval of that.
I'll make a motion then to make the temporary stop signs permanent stop signs at the intersection of Drawer Road and Hanson Road.
A second.
Motion by Mr. Fisher, second by Ms. Leday. Any further discussion? Having none, all in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Having none, the motion passes Item E is ordinance 2022-07, an ordinance making appropriations for the support of the City of Clear Lake Shores, Texas for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2022 and ending September 20th, 2023. Should that be 30th? Okay. Appropriating money for the various funds of the city, adopting the annual budget for the City of Clear Lake Shores, Texas, authorizing the city administrator to take certain administrative actions regarding the budget. Mr. Spear.
Those administrative actions with the budget is not to spend more than we have in the budget, and if that happens, to come back to council. So I did have a proposed budget, that was proposed, had a couple of workshops, and had limited, input, but if there's any changes that would need to be implemented, those can be done at this meeting if necessary, and then can be voted upon by the governing body, and those changes could be made. I wouldn't anticipate a change to the bottom line. It's the same amount of money, it's just moving it around in different accounts or line items.
Do you need a proposed change in the motion? That's the course. Say, we wanted to propose something, do we have the motion to approve and then discuss it and then amend the motion?
I would think that would,
Okay. Well, then I will motion to approve the budget and ordinance 2022-07.
A second.
Yeah, I know at the last workshop we discussed, that we all were in what seemed like agreement on working towards a pedestrian bridge immediately to the east side of Clear Lake Road, and that we would get EDC, possibly Plaza 10, Roads and Drainage, and the city all to contribute, to some extent. From what I've heard from Brent and from the Roads and Drainage meeting, some of that has been allocated or at least shifted in that direction. We also talked about reducing in general government the $50,000 for general improvement, down to maybe, I don't know, 10 to 20,000, and then pulling 10 or 15,000 out of the landscaping budget, both of which we did not, all of that money we did not use last year. Brent provided me that information, which would free up about $50,000 or $60,000 towards that project. I'd like to propose that that's adjusted in the budget, and I'd actually like to see it brought back to council at the second meeting this month for approval, rather than assume it's going to get in there just because we have time and we will be meeting. Do we need to amend the budget or the motion? Yes, I'd like to make that my amended motion.
I will second that motion amendment.
So we had a amended motion to, reallocate some of the funds from the general fund and, from the landscaping fund, to the bridge, rehabilitation fund, and for, Mr. Spear to bring that back. Is there any discussion on that?
Actually,
I'm just, I think Christie's writing it all down. I'm counting on her to get that all scribed.
can we also look at that time, possibly moving some of the animal control into it too, if we end up finding a better route? That would be a good use of those funds.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, you could table it and...
Well, you have to table it. I'm always hesitant to table it because if you table something, it has to come back in the exact same language. This will be the same language, so, yeah, you can table it.
With fixing of a...
Okay, before we do that, I didn't make that meeting, so educate me about, you just said the pedestrian bridge and you just said allocation to refurbishing that bridge. Which one is it?
A separate free-span bridge on the east side was what we discussed. Refurbishing is totally separate.
So that's the one that we've been talking about with EDC for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So we're taking these funds from funds that are already allocated somewhere?
We had $50,000 in the budget under general improvements without any defined project. At last year, we didn't spend really any of that. That budget has increased from $2,300 in like 2018 to $50,000 a year. And we don't have a planned project for 2023 for it, so said, hey, that's money that we could reallocate towards a specific goal that we have, which is the pedestrian bridge and landscaping. We had about $100,000 budgeted. Last year we spent $73,000 for landscaping, so there's another chunk of money that we could possibly repurpose. And we can always make budget amendments all year if we need to, but in that last workshop, all the council, we talked and thought, hey, it makes sense to try to take this money while we have it, with some EDC help, with some roads and drainage help for the aprons and possibly doing the abutments, and then Plaza 10 might be able to contribute as well and actually get that project executed rather than talking about it.
Okay, thanks for that.
I do have a comment on landscaping. So when the landscaping budget was set, there was about $25,000 that was in that budget for replacement of palm trees that were lost the year prior. So 77 and the 25 would have been close to 100, but I wasn't able to get anybody to quote on some palm tree replacements. So it wasn't like we didn't have a plan to use that money. It's just that it didn't happen. So.
All right. Well, I mean, if we can get somebody to quote them, then we can always make it a budget amendment based on that. But without a quote, we're dead in the water.
Any further discussion? Recommend also just to table this item and come back with the change to budget at the next meeting.
Absolutely. I can get that budget amended from its current form to show those changes. And there may be also another change. It was originally on the draft agenda, but I didn't have any information. But there may be some additional savings under animal services. We anticipated animal services anticipated going from $9,000 to almost $30,000 a year for animal services, and that, in looking at our call volume, didn't make a lot of sense for the city, and so we're looking at some other alternatives, and it was successful today in making contact with one of those, and so we may be able to have some savings there as well.
I make a motion to table ordinance 2022-07.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Day, second by Mr. Scanlon to table item E. Any further discussion? Having none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item F is approve the city fee schedule for fiscal year 23. Mr. Spear.
Hello again. This is the fee schedule that is adopted every year. There have been no changes to FY22, and there is a copy of the fiscal year 22 fees in your packet. I would recommend the approval of this as we move forward.
I'll motion to approve the fee schedule for 2023.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Scanlon, second by Ms. Leday. Any discussion?
I actually have a question, and we know one fee that will more than likely change with the STR permits. Will that affect our vote here?
That won't affect this vote. We can change that once if it's adopted, then it will update into the fee schedule automatically.
Just making sure.
So the question was the STR fee will be affected by the STR ordinance, not affecting tonight's vote on the fee schedule. Any further discussion? Having none, all in favor of item F? Aye. Any opposed, nay? Having none, motion passes. Item G is approve the city holiday schedule for fiscal year 23.
I make a motion to approve the city fee schedule for fiscal year 2023. Holiday schedule. Sorry, my bad.
What'd she say?
I'll second it.
All right. Motion by Ms. Leday, second by Mr. Fisher. Any discussion? Having none, all in favor, aye. Any opposed, nay. Having none, the motion passes unanimously. Next is item H, approve moving October 4th, 2022 council meeting to October 5th for the 2022 due to the National Night Out. And National Night Out is on the 4th, so we've always moved that council meeting so all the council members can participate if they choose in the National Night Out with the community. And we'll be having that at the Shell Bottom Park with all the assets of fire department, medical, EMS, police, Chief Keel handing things out.
I make a motion to move the October 4th meeting to October 5th due to National Night Out.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion in favor of H to move the October 4th meeting to the 5th by Ms. Leday, second by Mr. Wurtis. Any further discussion? Having none, all in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Having none, the motion passes unanimously. Item I, update the short-term rental ordinance. Mr. Spear, a lot of work being done on that.
This is the short-term rental ordinance that's been run through committee several times, appeared in front of this, and also had a lot of public input. This was forwarded to legal counsel Lauren Smith. He's in attendance tonight, and we received that updated. Can you hear me? Really? Sorry. Okay. Well, I feel like I'm sitting right underneath this thing, and it is loud. All right. This has had a lot of work done to it, as the mayor suggested. Lauren Smith is here from Olson & Olson, who's worked on this, and it was submitted to him for legal review and to add any things that would bring us in conformance with consistent with law, I guess. And so that has been done. I received this at about 11:15 on Friday morning. It was sent much earlier than that, but I was out in the field, and it was copied to another employee who didn't get it in a timely manner, so didn't have time to get it read through and as an agenda item, but I wanted to get it in the packet, and if there was any discussion, to go ahead and have that here. So you have a copy of that, and I don't have any input other than I will hand it over to Lauren, as he's the last one to touch it, if you have any questions.
My apologies for this coming just last Friday morning. It was before 11:15, but only about an hour before. I've been I apologize for it. I have got it put together. There was one question that Ms. Leday asked, and I want your council's feedback on it. The reason that the fee schedule that was discussed at the committee level is not included, which was they had an escalating fee for each number of violations, is that in order to do that, we have to give them some sort of due process. The one kind of due process that I know absolutely works is to cite them in municipal court and have them tried in municipal court, and if they're found guilty, the judge will fine them. And that typically tends to be escalating if you do that, because most judges, if they've got a repeat offender, are going to give higher and higher amounts of fine every time they come through. We can, however, assess a civil penalty as long as there is some sort of due process provided. So there would have to be some sort of an appellate provision contained in here. If we went back to the fee schedule that the committee came up with, and we'd have to also develop alongside it a due process or an appeal schedule or appeal process, so that we can provide their due process. The reason that I didn't do that is because I know that the court system works, but if we want to do it another way, if we want to do it with the fees, I can do that, but it's going to be, we're going to have to put in an appellate procedure for that too, and we can figure out who the appeal goes to and that kind of stuff. But I'd like your feedback on that, and I could go back and make those changes, and they'll be ready for the next council meeting.
So part of the reasoning why I'm pushing for this to go back on there is because that was a huge
Can we not use the mic?
a huge reasoning as to why things weren't changing, was because the committee felt like the city's hands were tied, that they had to take somebody actually to court, and things just weren't proceeding fast enough. So I feel like if we put the fee schedule back into it the way we proposed, then we issue a fee. If they want to appeal it, they can appeal it. In the process of appealing, I really don't care how we do it. We can do it, it can come to council, we can form a committee, whatever, but I feel like it's really important to have the fee structure in this ordinance, because without it, it takes too long to get it to court, get it on a docket, and actually have some form of action against the problems that we're having.
And then, again, I'd like to hear your feedback on that, and then if you've got any questions about what's contained in the ordinance, I'm certainly happy to answer them, or if there are things that need to be changed, then let me know, and I'm happy to change them.
Not to reinvent the wheel, but how have other communities handled it?
Most communities do it through their municipal court.
What is the timeline on a violation going through the municipal court as expedited as is reasonable?
I don't know. I don't have any, yeah, there it is on. I don't know. I don't do anything in municipal court, so I don't know. I do not know how long your municipal court takes to churn things through.
Well, it's a little different than like a speeding ticket, where it's issued to the offender on site and goes directly to the court that day, and you know, in a perfect world, they could be potentially in court 5 weeks, 6 weeks. That's pretty quick. With this, we have to identify and name a person to issue that legal notice or that citation to. They're not in person, so usually you're mailing them somewhere, and you got to send that by certified. And so we send it by certified mail to a specific name at a company that's representing a short-term rental, and that's not a 5-week process, because they can wait 10 days, not pick it up, and it gets kicked back to us. We've made the attempt. So I'd say it's probably, in an ideal world, it's probably 2.5 or 3 months to do it through the municipal court. And Christie may have some. It just depends on how quickly
they... You're going to
they
continue to have those same notice problems with a civil penalty.
Sure.
Because you've still got to provide them with notice that they've been fined, and you know, so those issues are still going to be there.
Okay.
I know the letter that is sent out, I haven't read it myself, but I was talking to Angie this morning, and they're given a 10-day notice on that violation letter, I guess, to contact Angie or to rectify whatever the issue is. And then once that is done, then it comes to municipal court as a citation. And the citation at that time is mailed off to the owner of that property, which may not be here. They may be in New York, they may be Louisiana. We'd have to find out who the actual owner of that property is to cite them. And on that citation, it gives them a date to appear. It gives them usually 14 days to appear, enter a plea on the violation, and then they can set up a payment plan, or they can pay it however they want to do it. If they want to go to trial on it, then that's usually about 2 months out, because we only hold court 1 day a month. So that's the process in a short version.
I actually did have a couple of questions here more with the due process. Just looking here, like under the notification of complaints, it says in here, after 4 notices of violations, which does not give the owner or anything any right to due process, to a single owner operator, their permit can be pulled. But that doesn't give them any due process to come and say.
They have an appeal process for their permit being revoked.
Right, but I'm just saying, so if they've got, for whatever reason, they get 4 complaints against them, and I mean, that could just be, a neighbor that's, just out for vengeance or whatever. They get 4 of those, and, they may be valid, they may not.
Right. And if they get revoked, they get a chance to appeal and come back and say, those weren't valid, and we do give them that due process.
But what happens
there.
during that, process while that appeal is going on? Their licenses, their certificate's revoked?
Correct.
And when that happens then, does that put another certificate out into the open that somebody could pick up?
No, it wouldn't. Not in that instance. It would be suspended, not revoked.
Okay.
So you also have to remember the 4 violations. Each violation, they've had an opportunity to.
I need to make that language change.
Appeal. Sorry. So each of those 4, each time they have one, they have the opportunity to appeal it.
And what if they've had 2 really bad weeks and they've had, the time hasn't been there for them to be able to appeal it? I'm just.
I hear what you're saying. I do. It's damned if we do, damned if we don't. Honestly.
I would definitely be more in favor of doing something more, and just for the homeowner's advantage. I would just feel horrible, about me. I mean, what if that was me?
Agreed.
I'm not necessarily an SCR owner or anything like that. I'm not. But if all of a sudden I've got a neighbor that's called the police on me 3-4 times for whatever reason, maybe they're just having a bad day. I mean, I've heard some of the complaints that have come out, and it's been people just sitting outside on a deck talking.
Right.
And that's supposed to be a noise complaint. And I mean, they're not doing anything that's blasting music or anything like that.
So I guess it's more a matter of defining the violation. If the police are sent out for a noise violation and they have found that the violation is valid, then the fee or violation will be issued. It's not them emailing the city or going on Facebook and saying these guys are being loud. That's not a violation. The police would actually have to go out and issue the citation saying, yes, you're in violation of our city ordinance of being too loud.
And it just says no. Okay, so I don't know. I was thinking it just said notice of violation. So what exactly constituted a notice of violation?
So I think in there we actually do define. We did at one point define that it has to be a complaint for notice of violation has to be the police going out and issuing the citation.
Right. I can make that distinction.
Okay.
Because we were concerned with just.
We'll just make them police-issued notices of violation.
Well, the notice of violation can be either police-oriented or it can be administrative through building and permitting. So there is a notice of violation that's generated in building and permitting office for that. And so that would also work hand in hand with the citation process that the police would utilize.
So within violation of city ordinances.
Well, I was just looking at this one in particular.
Or could be, doesn't necessarily have to be a city ordinance. It could be, any other law that they break that is enforced by the city police department. I don't know, can't think of anything right now.
I mean, not paying your hot
TK.
taxes would be a violation.
Correct, that would be like an administrative, item. Advertising not being permitted, that would be an administrative thing.
Right, but those are gonna be things that are gonna be pretty easy to prove as opposed to just somebody, a neighbor emailing and complaining.
Right, and we don't operate off of Facebook or social media. They have to go through the dispatch center. We prefer that they don't call police officers directly, and TK might want to speak to that. I think we're all in agreement that it makes more sense to call the dispatch center and have a call generated and document it at that level so that in the future, we have the ability to go back and review that data and pull up history on addresses, and the reports that are generated are done through that system, so it's all integrated for them. It's easier for the police to work through that initial call for service through the dispatch center than it is to take a personal phone call.
So, Chief, would it include, like, I mean, people that are publicly intoxicated? I mean, that wouldn't hinder an STR?
With relation to a public intoxication charge, if someone calls and complains about a noise disturbance or some other violation, the police go out. We take the circumstances, totality of those circumstances, and validate whether or not we issue a citation. The property owner who's rented the STR under permit and authorization is not responsible for someone who's publicly intoxicated. That particular person who's intoxicated would be dealt with on a criminal basis. So I don't know that, and I haven't read that ordinance in its entirety, if that would constitute a complaint against the property owner. They are responsible for their guests. However, there's certain things that the guests could do that would not be accessible to the property owner, such as public intoxication, such as fighting amongst the people that are in the group. Those are not things that I can write someone who owns the property a citation for. So criminal violations would be assessed at the time for whoever committed the violation. Now, whether or not that amounts to a STR ordinance violation would be up to the administrative review and issuance through a letter to some degree. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it
Or did I
does,
make it
and then address drugs, as far as drugs.
Okay.
If drugs are found in the premises, is that offensible to the STR?
It depends on the circumstances of the discovery of the drugs. If it is someone who has driven here from Dallas to stay the weekend and they brought whatever party favors they brought, the property owner who rented the STR has clearly posted rules about not having drugs and whatnot, everything that they could do to eliminate that possibility, and they're not on property, they're in Missouri where they live. It would be very hard to assess criminal responsibility for that violation at that location.
Thank you.
What happens if there's a call, there's a disturbance, whatever? I had a homeowner ask me this today. You show up, there's 20 cars there, there's only supposed to be 5 cars there. What's your process with that? How do you determine who, what, when, and where?
In that particular situation that you're describing, we would notify the property owner, probably from the scene, and advise them, you have an STR that's in violation. There's a large party here. There's, ruckus behavior, disturbance calls coming in. The police have been out there 3 times. We need you to take some kind of an action. We would deal with the criminal violations on scene with the people that were there. It would be my consideration that if this was something that the property owner refused to take care of, then we could issue citation to them, even through certified mail, for whatever violation that STR violation took place, if that makes any sense.
I think the idea behind the 4 notices of violations being issued to a single owner operator is designed to address those owners or operators that are not paying particular attention to who they're leasing these things to, and may not be providing the information that is required, and telling them these are the minimum standards of conduct, so that because if you get, and maybe 4 is not the right number, that's up to you guys to determine what's the right number, but if you've got somebody that has 4 of them, that may be a sign that they're really not paying attention to City of Clear Lake Shores regulations. I think that's the idea behind that.
So when we have a chronic offender, which is, in all honesty, what we're trying to prevent here, right? Everyone's gonna have a complaint against them for something in their life at some point. But you got a chronic offender and they hit the magic number 4, and we pull their permit, and they continue to operate. What are we gonna do? 'Cause that's where it matters on this, and I don't understand how we can do anything about it at this point, with or without this ordinance.
Yeah, like you said, so let's say that somebody does that, they get their permit pulled, but they continue to rent it out. Are you guys gonna have a running list of STRs and the current status of their permit, whether it's good or not? And then if you go by and if you see that, somebody's there, I mean, what's the process that we do that? What good is it gonna do us as far as, what enforcement action can we do if somebody is continuing to rent out an STR with a, revoked or suspended permit?
Well, your first part of the question was, will we have a list? And I would hope that we would. There's really no way for us to have that information available to us. So we would hope for a list of the owners of the STR's addresses. We also would have a copy of the ordinance that we could refer to, and in that process, that's the way it would look. Now, as far as them continuing to operate, that is a administrative violation that the city would have to seek legal recourse on. I mean, we can write tickets all day long. And another consideration is, what if we write them a ticket this weekend and next weekend they rent it out again, and then before they've ever had due process on the first ticket, they've got the second ticket, and it just compounds over and over and over. So there's a lot of things we don't know yet, and we would have to address those as they come, and hopefully the compilation of all of those violations would get action taken, and in the event that none of that works and they're still operating, the city would have to seek some other legal recourse. And I don't know if liens work on properties like that. I don't know how that transfers, but at some point they're going to have to. We're going to have to figure out how to make it stop. Yes.
Lauren, also on here, and maybe it's somewhere else, maybe it's just not here. It says that the applicant has to have name, address, email, telephone number, blah, blah, blah. We had reports from Kevin, a lot of them, where they couldn't get in touch with the property owner. They were sending mailers and certified mail and everything, and like Brent said, they were coming back. I thought we had talked about, Monica, we need to have a driver's license of an individual, but I don't see that in here anywhere. I don't see driver's license anywhere where we verify that like we talked about prior to issuing that permit.
The verification's in here. I remember doing it. I don't know right now. I can't.
Well, and I'm only looking right here where it says permit registration.
It says.
I didn't put driver's license in there because some of these are corporations.
So it has both corporation and owner.
Right.
Yeah, but I thought we were gonna require an individual to provide us with that contact, because that's the problem we're having now with the corporations. Nobody's answering.
We are requiring that the people say, it just doesn't say driver's license, but it is a full phone number, email, and address for property owner and for operator.
Well, we have that now on some of them that we can't get in touch with, so that's a problem.
There is a provision in here that says if they've provided us information that doesn't work, they're subject to suspension, but I'm not finding it right now. I know it's in here. I don't remember doing it.
I mean, we can add driver's license to it. That's not a problem. We didn't say that, no.
And so, not to make too many people mad, what Alex brought up was one of the reasons that I had brought up. I'm not against them. I don't have one. I'm not against them. I'm here to do what the citizens want. I'm not here to do what I want. But I'm going to tell you, if we don't raise our fees, we're going to be spending $5,000 to go to court to get a $250 fine.
We already raised it to $1,000 for the permit fee. It's in there.
That's just the permit fee.
And then
that's not the fines.
$2,000, up to $2,000 per fine.
So when we take them to court, we're going to spend more money than we're going to get back.
Which is why I said to put back into the verbiage the fee schedule. or recommended, I guess I should say. And then we'll have an appeal process for that. I think that's the faster way. But
Here it is, it's in item 10. I knew it was in here somewhere. It's in, section 18-135, item 10. In the event the city attempts to contact an owner-operator, and such contact information is not valid, the city will temporarily revoke the short-term rental permit until such time as the update has been provided and the information has been validated.
So it's revoked, but they continue to operate. What can we physically prevent them from operating? Or I say physically, not with force, but if we can't do anything, then this will, I mean, we can't do anything.
It's gonna be like any other ordinance violation, that if they continue to do it and just fly in the face of the regulation, ultimately, you may have to go to district court and spend thousands of dollars to get a district court judge to issue an injunction prohibiting them from using the property as a short-term rental. But that's the same problem you have with all ordinance enforcements. I mean, it's just, that's the way it is. That's the most effective way to prevent somebody from violating your codes. It's not the most efficient way by any stretch, but it is the most effective way.
So we just need to change our mentality, I guess, at the administrative level, that we will pursue these to the fullest extent with no exceptions, to set the precedence that it doesn't matter if we have to spend a bunch of money pursuing you, we are going to pursue you to the fullest extent. That's what I'm hearing is the answer when there's a problem, otherwise it's just gonna fester.
we can also add verbiage that court costs have to be covered.
Yeah, I mean, you can include that, but again, it's like, I mean, it's
Anything
like
else?
the civil penalty. If they don't pay it, what's our remedy to go get it?
Right.
Well, we're probably not gonna get it. You know, we're gonna have to do something else to prevent them from operating their short-term rental.
Is that why you recommend the municipal court route, because it's equally as difficult if somebody chooses not to comply?
At least with a municipal court route, you've got a court-ordered fine that is, you know, if they're not paying the fine, you can issue a warrant, and you know, it can be enforced that way. It's not, you guys don't want fines, you want compliance. And, you know, the municipal court, that fine does come, you know, backed by a, you know, a court that you can take other actions if they don't comply with the order of the court.
I guess I had a question then on the, if you issue the warrant like that, if it goes to the municipal court, what do you do in the case of a corporation? You don't have an individual that actually owns that place, it's a corporation.
Yeah.
The whole corporation in jail?
We'd have to build it so that it's the 24-hour contact person. Somebody's gonna have to have their neck on the line.
Could you not put a lien on the property and then,
No.
add interest to it? if it was-
Statutorily, I mean, unless it was something like, you know, high grass and weeds that you had to go in and mow, and there's a notification process that you have to go through with that, then no, you can't just, there's not a statutory process to allow us to do that. There's not an easy solution. There is not. My suggestion is, again, we ultimately run into the same problem. My ultimate suggestion, and ultimately where I think this is gonna go, is that we move the short-term rental permitting process into the zoning ordinance and issue a specific use permit for each individual short-term rental. And that way, if they, you know, if they violate the terms of it, you'd put it in there that we would revoke, you know, their ability to, or would revoke their specific use permit. And that carries a little bit more, that's a little bit more, because then they're violating the zoning ordinance, and we've got more leverage with a district court if we go down there. But and it's done on an individualized basis. They understand they have to go through the Planning and Zoning Commission, they have to go to the City Council to get these things. It's not just going down to see Christie and have a permit issued. They've got to go through two governmental bodies to get the specific use permit. And, you know, I can't guarantee it, but I hope that they will consider that, you know, that's a little more serious. Again, we could end up at the, you know, and even in that process, we could end up in the exact same spot, where if they just don't wanna do it, they don't wanna do it, and,
So you're right, we did talk about that. So are you going to push us that way?
Yes,
With
that's
the
the
direction
direction
we
we're going.
need? Cause
For-
we do need to do that.
yes, for denied, I just was trying to get the regulations in place, because my thought was that as once we get the zoning regulation, the zoning ordinance in place, then as the, STRs come up for renewal, they'll renew through the zoning ordinance. But I wanted to have in place, you could have, you know, some that don't renew for another 11 months, maybe, I don't know what the schedule is, but I wanted to have a stronger set of regulations in place while those came through the renewal process, as we waited for those to go through the renewal process and into the zoning ordinance. So the zoning ordinance piece will be coming next, once we determine that, you know, that this is, and then ultimately we'll probably revoke or repeal most of this, not all of it, because it will be built into the specific use permit. These regulations they will be repealed from chapter 18 and be added to each specific use permit. Any other questions?
No further questions? All right, item 15 is adjournment at 8:01.